Well, Congress is one step closer to passing a $1.3 trillion federal spending bill. It's ahead of a Friday deadline, and just moments ago, the House voted for the plan, 256 to 167. It now heads to the Senate, where it's largely expected to go through and be signed by the president in order to avoid a government shutdown. The bill itself is nearly 2,300 pages long. So what's in it? A little something for everyone, apparently, something to make nearly everyone upset as well. CBS News contributor and Washington Post congressional reporter Ed O'Keefe joins us now from Washington. So, Ed, fabulous write-up that you had today in the Post. Can you break this down for us? What's in the bill and what's not?
Well, as you said, $1.3 trillion, Rena, and there's about an $80 billion increase in defense spending, roughly $63 billion increase in domestic spending, basically everything but the Pentagon. That's a victory for everyone. Republicans were looking for a big increase. This is the largest in several cycles, and it's also a significant increase in domestic spending, certainly far more than Republicans wanted. Diving deeper into the details, obviously one of the more controversial issues in recent months has been what this bill might say about immigration policy. Ultimately, only about 100, maybe 120 miles of border wall fencing or barriers would be built, and they're not new. It's essentially money authorized to reconstruct or to fortify already existing barriers, mostly in the San Diego area and in the Rio Grande Valley of Texas. So President Trump now loses his best opportunity that he had in his presidency, certainly in the young years of his presidency, the early years of his presidency, to fulfill that pledge to build the big, beautiful wall along the 2,100-mile span between the United States and Mexico.
So, Ed, when you look at this, besides your sort of standard spending plans that are typically in it, this proposal also, the bill is aimed at improving background checks for gun purchases. It protects also professional baseball players, a pay raise for jury duty. And this was, I thought, very interesting. I'm curious who got this in. Pooling tips at restaurants. What can you tell us about this?
It actually prohibits pooling tips. There was a Labor Department proposal that would allow restaurant owners to take all the tips earned by waiters, pool them, and allow the owner to distribute it. Well, lawmakers said, no, you're not going to be allowed to do that. It could be detrimental to workers. And you might ask yourself, why are all these things not related to dollars and cents included in this legislation? And the reason is, this is always one of those bills that's expected to pass every year, that needs to pass in order to keep the lights on. So Democrats and Republicans, folks with all sorts of priorities, try to tuck in their pet projects in order to sweeten the deal for folks who might not like other parts of the agreement. That is why they agreed to put in what's called the Fix NICS Act. It's a bill that's designed to incentivize the speedy reporting of information to the National Instant Criminal Background Check System. This, of course, in response to all the school shootings. The other thing it does, for the first time in several years, it will allow the CDC to investigate the effects of gun violence in this country. For years, gun rights advocates have blocked the CDC from doing that, believing that ultimately that research might compel lawmakers to eventually make changes in gun laws. But amid all the outcry of people in recent weeks, they're going to allow that. You look at other things. You mentioned jury duty. Yes, if you're a federal grand jury member, especially here in Washington, you're going to see a $10 increase in your take-home pay each day, from $40 to $50. This is an interesting case of about 24 grand jurors seated here in Washington in various cases who appealed to lawmakers last fall saying, look, I can't live on $40 a day. It's below minimum wage. And if you're asking us to take on these long cases that in some cases go on for 18 months or so, you got to pay us a little more coin. And so they will. It's
so great also to hear, Ed, that it's not just lawmakers, it's folks at the bottom of the mountain saying, look, this doesn't work for us.
Yeah.
Help us change it. You also mentioned, Ed, it doesn't really give the president everything that the president's asked for. Budget Director Mick Mulvaney spoke about this at a White House press briefing earlier. I want to play a bite for you from that.
Let's cut right to the chase. Is the president going to sign the bill? The answer is yes. Why? Because it funds his priorities. We've talked for the last, 3, 4, 5, 6 months about trying to get the president's priorities funded, and this omnibus bill does that. It funds national defense. As you heard Sarah mention, it gives the troops the increase that we were trying to get them in their compensation. It funds opioids. It funds school safety. It's a tremendous increase in workforce development, something that doesn't get a lot of attention, but this administration has been pushing since we got here. It actually starts taking a look at funding infrastructure, and it also does a lot of what we wanted, not everything we wanted, but a lot of what we wanted on immigration. So all things considered, when we look at the bill, we have to weigh what we asked for and what we had to give away to give it. Is it perfect? No. Is it exactly what we asked for in the budget? No. Were we ever going to get that? No. That's not how the process works.
So Mulvaney says the president will sign the bill. Do you have any idea how he feels about the bill at the end of the day?
We know that he had big concerns on Wednesday. There was a sort of 11th hour meeting between House Speaker Ryan and the president, Mulvaney and others, to sort of encourage and remind the president of what exactly was in this bill that would compel him to sign it. The big loss for him in this, absolutely, is immigration. But he, congressional Republicans and Democrats especially, can tout big increases in spending for things like opioids, like Mick Mulvaney mentioned. There's going to be $4.65 billion spread across federal agencies to help state and local governments deal with law enforcement issues, to pay for treatment programs. That's a $3 billion increase in one fiscal year in response, of course, to the ongoing outbreak and the epidemic really across the country. But, you know, there's other things in this arena. One thing to keep in mind, there's about $9 million, for example, to pay for overtime for Secret Service agents who haven't been paid yet because, you know, they have a lot of people to protect and they work long hours. But in that same line item, Democrats were able to get assurances that every year from now on, the Secret Service will issue an annual report on the cost and the frequency of the travel of adult children of a president. What is that designed to do? Yeah. It's designed to keep tabs on Eric Trump and Donald Trump Jr. as they travel overseas on behalf of the Trump Organization. That's the kind of stuff that's buried in this kind of bill, which is why it's so interesting to look at it once it's written, because ultimately it'll all become law.
Yeah, so fascinating to hear you say that. We love your eagle eyes on all this stuff, and I hear, my friend, it's your last day at the Washington Post. How you feeling?
You know, I'm turning in the laptop and getting ready to join you guys next month. It's bittersweet. This place has been good to me, but I'm looking forward to working with you and everybody else there on a regular basis. And we are looking forward to having you join us in a few weeks here. And I'm looking forward to recruiting you. I'm trying to get a juice bar in the CBS News cafeteria. I'll see what we can do. That's a good idea. We'll need one in D.C., though, too. Okay, you get one in New York, we get one here. You already know the game. You already know the game, my friend. Thank you so much for joining us, Ed. We look forward to welcoming you full-time in just a few weeks.